The British Empire was vast in the 18th century. It spanned the globe, encompassing territories on every continent. From the bustling ports of India to the plantations of the Caribbean, the sun never set on the British Empire. North America was a jewel in its crown, a land of opportunity and promise. The colonies there were seen as vital to the empire's wealth and power. The New England colonies were thriving, with bustling towns and vibrant marketplaces. People from all walks of life contributed to the growing economy. Trade boomed. Ships laden with goods sailed across the Atlantic, bringing in everything from spices to textiles. The ports were alive with activity as merchants and sailors worked tirelessly. This was a time of growth. New buildings rose and towns expanded, but it was also a time of simmering tensions. As debates over governance and rights began to surface, the seeds of revolution were being sown. In secret meetings and through pamphlets, ideas of independence and self-governance spread. The colonies were a source of raw materials. They provided timber, furs and fish, which were essential for the British Empire's industries and economy. These raw materials were shipped back to Britain, fueling its factories and markets. The wealth generated was immense. The colonies were also a market for British goods. Shops and market stalls were filled with imported products, from fine china to the latest fashions. This mercantilist system created wealth for many, especially the wealthy colonial merchants, but it also led to resentment among those who felt exploited. The colonists were proud and independent. They yearned for autonomy, valuing their freedom and self-reliance. They chafed under British rule. They wanted to control their own destinies, to make their own laws and govern themselves. This desire for freedom extended to their finances. They wanted control over their own currency and economic policies. The Currency Act of 1751 would become a flashpoint. It restricted the colonies' ability to issue their own money, causing widespread anger and frustration. It would push the colonies closer to rebellion. The desire for independence grew stronger, setting the stage for a revolutionary struggle that would change the world. The New England colonies were rich in resources. Their forests provided timber for British shipyards. Their fertile lands yielded crops like tobacco and wheat. The Atlantic teemed with fish, a vital source of protein. These exports were the lifeblood of the colonial economy. They fueled the engine of British trade. Whaling was a particularly lucrative industry. Whale oil lit the lamps of Europe. It provided valuable raw materials. The colonists were skilled shipbuilders and merchants. They forged trade networks across the Atlantic. This economic success, however, would soon be challenged. The British government sought to control this wealth. They imposed taxes and regulations. This angered the colonists. They felt they were being treated unfairly. The stage was set for a clash of wills. The colonies faced a problem. They lacked a standardized currency. Each colony issued its own paper money. This led to confusion and instability. Exchange rates fluctuated wildly. Merchants found it difficult to conduct business. This situation benefited some colonists. It allowed them to manipulate the system. They could pay debts with depreciated currency. This hurt creditors, often British merchants. It created resentment and distrust. The British government saw this as chaos. They sought a solution that would restore order, but their solution would have unintended consequences. The British Parliament passed the Currency Act in 1751. This act targeted the New England colonies. It aimed to regulate their monetary systems. The act prohibited the issuance of new paper money. It also made existing paper money unacceptable for public debts.
The act aimed to protect British merchants. It sought to stabilize trade. But it had the opposite effect. The colonists were outraged. They saw the act as an infringement on their rights. It was seen as a power grab by the British Crown.
The Currency Act had immediate consequences. It caused a shortage of currency in New England. This made it difficult for colonists to conduct business. It fueled resentment against British rule. It was a pivotal moment in the road to revolution. The Currency Act forced the colonies onto a hard currency system, which was a significant shift from their previous practices. They had to use British pounds sterling, a currency that was not only unfamiliar, but also scarce in the colonies. This seemed like a simple solution to standardized transactions, but it had devastating consequences for the colonists who were already struggling to make ends meet.
It tipped the economic scales in favor of British merchants, who had easier access to the currency and could manipulate the market to their advantage. We, the colonists, now had to acquire pounds to participate in the economy, which was no easy task given the limited supply. This meant selling our goods at a disadvantage, often for much less than their true value. We had to accept lower prices, and British merchants could dictate terms, leaving us with little room to negotiate.
This led to a significant loss of wealth in the colonies as more and more money flowed out to British merchants. Many colonists fell into debt, unable to keep up with the economic demands placed upon them. They were forced to mortgage their land and lost their property to wealthy British creditors, who were all too eager to seize the opportunity. The Currency Act deepened the economic divide, creating a stark contrast between the wealthy and the impoverished. It made the colonists feel like subjects, not citizens, as their economic freedom was severely restricted. It fueled the flames of rebellion, setting the stage for the eventual fight for independence. Echoes of the past. The story of the Currency Act resonates today. It was a time when financial control was wrested from the people and centralized in the hands of a few. We are on the cusp of a new financial era, folks. The digital revolution is transforming how we think about money and transactions. Central Bank Digital Currencies, or CBDCs, are being discussed more and more. These digital currencies are poised to change the financial landscape. These are digital versions of national currencies, issued and controlled by central banks. They promise a new level of efficiency and security in financial transactions.
Proponents argue that CBDCs offer several advantages. They believe these digital currencies can revolutionize the way we handle money. They could make transactions faster and cheaper, reducing the costs associated with traditional banking, and even increase financial inclusion. By providing access to financial services to those who are currently underserved, CBDCs could bridge the gap.
But, critics raise some serious concerns. They worry about the potential downsides of such centralized control. They fear that CBDCs could give governments unprecedented control over our finances. This level of control could lead to misuse and abuse of power. They see echoes of the Currency Act in these proposals. The historical parallels are hard to ignore.
The Currency Act aimed to control the colonial economy. It led to hardship and resentment. People felt their economic freedom was being stripped away. CBDCs, in the wrong hands, could do the same. They could usher in an era of unprecedented financial surveillance. The potential for misuse is a specter that looms large over this new technology. CBDCs are different from cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are decentralized, while CBDCs are centralized. They are controlled by governments, and this control is what makes them potentially dangerous.
CBDCs are programmable, which means governments can dictate how they are used. They could limit spending to certain goods and services, track every transaction we make, and this, it erodes privacy.
Imagine a world where the government can control your spending. They could limit purchases of unhealthy foods, restrict travel, and even freeze your assets if you disagree with their policies. This may sound like science fiction, but it is within the realm of possibility with CBDCs.
Governments might start with seemingly benign intentions. They might use CBDCs to distribute welfare payments or track spending on illegal goods. But this could easily slide into something more sinister.
China is already experimenting with a digital yuan. They are using it to monitor citizen behavior, rewarding those who comply with their social credit system and punishing those who don't.
Western governments are watching closely. They are exploring CBDCs and claim it is for our own good, but the potential for abuse is enormous. We must be vigilant.
We must ensure that CBDCs don't become tools of oppression.
The colonists fought for their financial freedom. They rebelled against the Currency Act. We face a similar fight today. We must protect our financial autonomy in the digital age. We must resist the encroachment of government control.
We must demand transparency from our leaders. We must hold them accountable. We must ensure that any implementation of CBDCs respects our privacy and freedom.
The lessons of the Currency Act are timeless. They remind us that financial control is about power. When governments control our money, they control us. We must never forget this. We must safeguard our financial freedom. It is the foundation of a free and just society. Thank you for your time watching this video. Please support this work, subscribe to this channel, share with your friends, and let's never forget to fight for our freedom. Remember, freedom is not free.